Hello, all you cool cats and kittens. This is John with a couple of service announcements. I wanted to introduce this new series we got going on at Arcane Precision. Basically, we're going to be doing some army. We wanted to call them deep dives, but they're not really going to be super duper deep because we probably wouldn't get through all of them. So we're just going to call them army spotlights. And we're going to go through each army that is commonly played. We probably won't get into legacy stuff too much, but we're definitely going to cover all the Mark IV armies. So be on the lookout for that in the next few weeks. I'll probably be posting. Me and Kyle will be posting some episodes probably weekly till that series is done. Another thing I wanted to mention was that we just got these cool new tokens from Centurion Tactics. They're fabulous. Not a sponsor, just a good friend. He sent us, bought a couple of token sets from him, and he sent us a whole bunch of stuff for price support, which was awesome of him. And the tokens are freaking amazing. Basically, they're not your normal, what would you call them? The acrylic tokens that have, like the faction symbols and stuff like that. But what they do have is a description of all the spells and abilities, which for me is freaking awesome because I forget all the rules. And to have rules right in front of me as I'm playing certain spells or command cards or whatever, it really helps a lot. So give Centurion Tactics a shot. I believe they have a Facebook. I will put it in the show notes here. That way you guys can check them out. All right, thanks so much. And now back to your regularly scheduled program, whatever that is. Just kidding. Some army spotlights. We're gonna start up with Infernals. Oh, and one more thing. I do apologize on my end. The audio is a little rough on this episode. My headset had crept out on me right before we recorded this. So I do apologize, and it should be better in the future. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye. Hello and welcome to Arcane Precision. My name is John, and we're doing a special series on Army deep dives. And this time around, we've got Infernals, and with us we have Cody.
Hello, how we doing?
Doing good, doing good. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you got started, and some achievements and credentials and stuff like that.
Gotcha. I started playing War Machine in, I think, 2013. I don't actually remember the exact date. We'll go with that. A little over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Picked up Infernals at the end of Mark III, started playing them in Mark IV, the Masters side more seriously. Play out of Buffalo, New York. We have a fairly healthy meta with a lot of competitive players. I've been having a good year with Infernals. Have gone to WTC a few times. This year I won Adepticon IG with them. Was one of the undefeateds at Bokur. Having a generally good year with them competitively.
Very nice. So, what normally drives you to play an army? Like in this case, like Infernals.
I usually get into an army for a specific chapter or list. In the case of Infernals, at the end of Mark III, I was had a Fiora 4 list I really liked in Menoth and couldn't find a pairing in the entire faction. But she was I was able to convert the list into Infernals because she was in Hearts of Darkness, and that's how I got into Infernals. And then at the start of Mark IV, I picked up all of the horrors and the master side from a buddy who was getting out of them and decided to try them out at the start of the edition and have played them on and off since.
Awesome. So what would you say the strengths and weaknesses of the army are? What makes them? We call them a boogeyman because they're really strong at the moment. Do you agree or?
I don't know if they qualify as a boogeyman, but they are in a very good position right now.
Okay.
They're certainly a very strong army.
Yeah. And particularly Zadaroth is usually the preferred drop into most things. I believe, right?
Yeah, I would say that's correct. Sataroth is a very good generalist list. Strengths of the army, we attrition very well. A lot of our stuff is not that durable for its points, but we just have a lot of stuff because of the way summoning works, basically. So we peace trade very well. We have a lot of tools. We have so many random rules on different support solos that we have some amount of tech for most things if we want to take it. We have lots of magic weapons. We have entropic. We can hand stealth out, etc., etc. All of our support models also can do work because they have okay attacks and we're an army that brings debuffs. Things we're bad at, we don't really have a gun line. We have a couple of specific models with okay guns, but we can't really take a bunch of guns and be happy about it. We can have lackluster melee threat ranges, but we have a couple of things that help fix that. Zadaroth has Rites of Torment is the big one, which is something people can play to not allow you to have, but it's still then you're getting into everybody having to position well in the game that causes, so it's kind of fine.
I've noticed that they can definitely sneak up on you. You think they have a certain threat, and then, like you said, Rites of Torment or
Yeah.
Vengeance triggers or
We
something
just
like that.
have a lot of rules on the table, so it can be easy to miss something or forget to do something.
Right. Yeah.
There's a couple more decision points in a normal Infernal turn than there often are in another list, so it's a little bit more mental load to manage. But that means your opponent also has a little bit more to consider as well. So um, we're very flexible because of the way summoning works. We don't have a rack, but we get to pick which three of the heavies we bring on a game by game basis, which is a lot of flexibility.
Awesome. Okay. Let's head over to the next question. Usually, we're doing most of the army breakdowns we're doing are going to be Mark IV armies. But in this case, we wanted to showcase some more of the more popular legacy armies, and at this point, we would ask what you would start with in Infernals, but since it's a legacy or armies or legend or whatever you want to call it, it's kind of hard. Um, but that being said, what would you say are some of the integral pieces of playing Infernals? Like it's sort of like standouts.
Cultists and Howlers are kind of our go-to units. Cultists are essentially our Empower unit, and they matter for our essence economy. So you have to have them. Howlers are our standout combat unit. You're usually taking a unit in every list, often both, taking full FA, two of them. And then the horrors themselves, you need the heavies. And because you summon three of them a game at 100 points, you need a lot of the heavies, not just two or three. You need a bunch of the character solos, but those are usually easier to find. It's usually the howlers and the horrors are the things that people struggle to find right now.
Oh, they're hard to find at the moment.
They can be, yeah. I know SFG said they're going to be modernizing the army and releasing it similar to how they're doing Cephalics right now. So in theory, at some point, you will be able to find things much easier. But I don't know what the timetable for that looks like or if plans have changed.
Right, right. There's hope for sure. It's really a cool looking army for sure. And it's not one that has gotten dated as far as like the looks, since it was only what was it made like a couple of years before COVID. Not even. Yeah, it's not. It was one of the newer ones.
I don't remember exactly when they released, but yeah, it's a relatively new army, all things considered.
Right. Um. So yeah, it would be. I think it'd be. Plus, they're popular, so it'd be beneficial to sort of re-release them.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So yeah, we'll move on to the next question. What normally is your process for making a list or a list pair when playing Infernals? Or with some common modules, as you know, seems to be the popular term nowadays.
So my thought process thinking with pair, basically regardless of army, is I pick the caster I really want to play, and I figure their list out, and then I figure out what I can't play it into and build a list to deal with that. In Infernals, it's a little bit simpler because you have three casters and you're playing Zadaroth. So you only have to make one choice on caster. Do you play Omo or do you play Agathon? As far as modules go, you kind of have a lot of choices in Infernals. There's very few bad models in our model line. The gate is unfortunately generally not very good
Yeah, I noticed.
for a bunch of small reasons, but most of its abilities got worse going to Merc 4, and it didn't pick up anything to make up for that, basically.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen a single one played since Mark IV.
There's a reason.
Yeah, it's just a static piece that
And
doesn't do
then,
much.
yeah, Bros cutthroats are generally considered subpar, although they're not so bad you can play them and not and you can feel okay about putting them on the table, but they're generally worse than our other unit options. And other than that, you can the Shrieker's not very good either right now, but that's partially a meta thing.
Which ones are the Shriekers?
The shooting light. Its speed 6, range 10 is its problem, so it's a shooty light that doesn't really excel at shooting and has no melee attacks.
Gotcha. Maybe we can explore a little bit of the pairing there because so Zadaroth is definitely in most people's pairs. Um, how does maybe like how does Omo or what's the other dude Agathon? How do they? How normally when do you go for one or the other? Does the Zadaroth list change when you do one or the other?
Presumably it would to some extent. I haven't particularly enjoyed playing Omo on the scenario packet, so I haven't put a ton of thought into an Omo Zadaroth there. Zadaroth is a very generalist list that has a def skew, decent shooting because Zadaroth's gun is quite nice, on top of a couple units of Grievers usually, or one. And then she just brings a very good general toolkit. She's got anti-range built into her kit. She's got Sighting Touch. She's got Rites of Torment. Omo plays a very beefy list that wants to play into melee armies, especially melee armies that are not living or are soulless
Mm,
if they are living, because he's usually built around a Guardian of Souls, which gives +2 arm against melee attacks that are made by living soulless models or non-living models, essentially. And then Agathon doesn't do a ton for their army, really, but is very good at reaching out and touching things. They're a very strong spell slinger who is good at scalpeling out pieces.
So it sort of gives you a little more threat than maybe Zadaroth army couldn't.
Yes. It's also because they're doing it with very high quality Hellfires. It's very good at scalpeling out specifically cavalry or similar model profiles.
Hmm, interesting.
Things that die to one very high quality, fully boosted attack, basically.
All right, so we'll move on to the next question. Can you give us some tips and tricks on playing Infernals? Like, um, sort of to help someone that's just getting into the army um, be able to play better.
Yep, I've certainly got a couple of tricks. As far as tips go, they kind of reward playing basic War Machine well. You want to play the scenario game, make sure you're threatening scenario elements. A lot of your slower pieces you will position to just be able to kill anything that walks onto a scenario element, rather than trying to make sure you have your opponent in threat range. Tormentors are melee heavy, and they are kind of slow and dirtily most of the time. But they don't need to be fast if they're just sitting on a 50 objective and kill whatever stands on it. We reward piece trading well, so a lot of our game plan usually revolves around being able to prevent a piece, have it do work ideally, but sometimes you don't get the option, and then kill whatever kills it efficiently and keep doing that without letting them kill too many things with the same model so that they're not trading up. The only real trick that I can think of in the army that is something some people don't notice is Orin 2 is the unit attachment that can go on Cultist or Dark Sentinel, and he collects souls when a friendly model is destroyed within 10, if it has a soul. A lot of our models do not. But we have the ability, since it doesn't matter what killed it, if you can get a model killed to a continuous effect or a spike trap, etc., you still get the soul. One of our heavies drops a Scather Cloud when we summon it, which kills cultists so that you can generate their soul on demand. You don't use it in every matchup, but it lets you stack Orin up to have rerolls and Arcane Vortex if you're playing that Orin.
Interesting. That's pretty cool.
That is something that catches people by surprise,
It definitely would catch me by surprise.
and it's not terribly obvious at first read that that's something you can do.
Yeah, I know. Like vengeance seems to be one that can catch you off guard for sure.
Yeah, Howlers have Vengeance. The melee heavies have Hyper Aggressive. Both of those occasionally surprise somebody and get you into threat range of something you weren't otherwise. Umbral Guardians very consistently mess with people because they just forget about them at some point during the game and shoot something they shouldn't.
Right. Done that plenty of times.
And suddenly there's an Umbral on the table and the gun didn't do anything.
Yup. Yep, definitely have done that. Now to the next question is for people playing against Infernals, how do you best face them? What are lists, types, or groups that you should avoid when playing into them? And what are some strategies or tactics that you should employ against them?
Yeah, it's partially dependent on what master they're playing, but generally speaking, it is difficult to win a straight piece trading game into Infernal. They have three extra heavies. They're not the best heavies in the world, but if they can trade 1-to-1, they don't have to be. They will have more heavies than you at the end of the day if you both take a heavy off the table at every turn. Typically.
Yeah.
There's a couple of lists that's not necessarily true for, but in general. The things they don't like to see are armies that have high threat ranges and can get a lot of work done when they alpha. Veil 1 used to be kind of the poster child for this. They also don't like armies that can take an alpha and then have a defensive feat to make it hard to hit them back. Nova can do that, where she does a bunch of work at range and then feats and you can't attack her model.
Right.
so she gets to do it again. Generally, for more master specific things, you can play into Zadaroth with a lot of lists in a way where she doesn't get Rites of Torment, and if you do that, it's a list that preps 12 in melee. That makes it much easier to at most 12 in melee. That makes it much easier to position around and be on even footing with for threat ranges.
Right. So I have noticed that when I've played against Zadaroth, once she does her push, where basically everything gets flooded, it's just really hard to get back from that if obviously if you allow it to happen. Um, what do you think people should do better when that happens?
Yeah, so the push is Zadaroth goes up. Zadaroth has a turn where her models do some amount of work, and then she feats, and everything's in your face. And it's hard to deal with.
Right.
Um, you generally have to accept two things on Zadaroth beat turn most of the time. You will not be able to kill everything that you want to. Killing things efficiently is just difficult in the Zadaroth beat for most armies. And then at some point, you are going to miss a roll that you should not have missed. You're going to roll Snake Eyes or a 3 when you needed a 4, and something you didn't expect to is going to get to dodge. You can minimize the chance of that happening, but generally you just have to deal with it and try not to tilt.
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge.
Yeah. You have to have a plan for dealing with her feet turn. Usually, what that plan needs to be able to accomplish is killing two heavies and some amount of infantry or a whole bunch of infantry.
Mm,
You just need to kill enough just that you're not losing the game on attrition outright, and that you can score the scenario elements you need to score without losing the scenario game.
so then, for armies that, well, I mean, for lists that can deal with her, I know you mentioned Bear Nova, or lists that have a high threat range and can do a lot of work. Um, do you usually just play out that matchup, or do you go to your second?
It depends on the list. Um,
Right.
the way Zadaroth usually plays out, you need to be able to do two things to beat her. One, you need to be able to deal with the feet turn. That one's fairly obvious. If you can't deal with her feet turn, you're going to get pushed off the table. And then you also need to be able to either win the scenario game or actually out attrition Infernal baseline. A lot of lists can do one of those things but struggle with the other. There are some lists that are good at both, which are the lists where I want to play my pairing. Crix is often one of those lists. I do not love Zat into Crix. It's playable, but they play the peace trade and attrition game very well with necrosurgeons and all of their various tricks. And they have Carnage on their rack, so they tend to be pretty accurate. So they deal with that off beat turn well enough.
Is the Orgoth matchup an interesting one? Because I don't remember if there was some talk about that when Infernals first started getting popular. Is that one that Orgoth usually has an advantage, or is it the other way around?
I would say it's pretty even.
Okay.
The Hurrsk list that you usually see with a Garlgast and a bunch of Ulcor and its various iterations is accurate enough, especially with Fate Blast on top of Carnage, that it deals with the feet turn,
Hmm.
and it can outgrind you if things go the right way, but it's very positioning intensive,
Right.
so it could go either way at the end of the day. It definitely has the tools to give Stat a run.
How about the new hotness, Vargas? How's that?
I've only gotten a couple reps. I don't love Zadaroth into it, but I don't have enough games to really have solid opinions yet.
Okay.
Generally, Gravediggers appears to possibly be the army I want to see the least across the table from me.
Oh, okay.
But we'll see if more reps changes that. I don't know
Right.
how much of that is it might be a bad matchup or I don't have enough reps.
Yeah.
It could
Yeah.
be one or the other. It could be both.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, I know. I remember you were on another podcast a few months ago, right after Adepticon, I think it was. And
Yes, that had me on for Bokur,
yeah, and one of the questions was like,
Step and Company.
yeah, what do you feel like you don't want to drop against him? You're like, I feel pretty good about dropping Infernals into pretty much anything.
Yeah, there are other lists that I don't necessarily love seeing with Satteroth, but at the time, none of them were seen play really, so
Right.
it wasn't really a problem.
Gotcha.
The meta's been shifting relatively rapidly with how quickly they're pushing new models out, so we'll see where we end up at in a few months.
Right. Wow, this is one that I didn't have on my notes, but do you see some changes happening when we do an update in January? And what do you think?
I don't know if it'll be January, but yes, I do see some changes. There are a couple of models we have that do things very similar to Mark IV solos, but don't actually have to use their rules to do them. Like we have Hawk with Tactician Brothers Keeper. They're just always on. They're not battle plans the way Precision Strike is on all of the various commander models in Mark IV armies. I
Mm,
just always have that ability up.
you don't have to pick.
So when they modernize the army, I expect they'll probably bring some of those things in line to the way those solos tend to work in Mark IV. If anything gets nerfed, it would probably be Zadaroth, but I don't think she needs a big nerf. I think she's relatively fine. If anything, maybe tone her feet down very slightly.
Right. Because right now her feat is um it's similar to Pythos' feat, but you can knock stuff down in the Crix army where you can't in Infernals.
Yeah, it also is. It requires my model to be in control, not the enemy model, so it's you can't get around it by having a gun backup, basically.
Oh, okay. That makes sense, yeah.
You don't always have that option into Kaithos, but in theory, you can do that into Kaithos.
I hadn't thought about that.
It usually ends up being functionally very similar. Infernals is a little bit tricky to talk about just because a lot of it really is just like play good War Machine. That's the game plan.
Yeah, it's just lots of practice. Be good.
Like play scenario, set up your peace trades well, you'll be fine.
Right. Yeah, it's funny how those some armies are like that, and then some other well, some lists are like that, and then some other lists is like, do you play bad War Machine? That's okay. We'll help you with that.
I don't know if it's okay, but some armies like there are actually specific play patterns you need to be aiming for, not just play scenario and peace trade. Like we'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah. I know. Cosmo was saying. I think it was on the Amusing Panda, the new
I saw he was on
live stream
John's
podcast.
podcast a few times. Yeah, I haven't actually watched
Yeah,
any of
yep.
them yet.
He's on there, and I think Mario's shop talk. He was on one of those, and he mentioned he mentioned our boy Ragemonger, how he rewards you playing bad War Machine. I'm like,
He
I can
certainly
kind of see it.
can. He just went for a plan and everything was sixes because the trade stronger feat turned, so it worked. Shouldn't have, but it did.
Oh man, thanks for hopping on and chatting about Infernals.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
We we could always get some more insight about how to play them and play against them. They actually, I I was always interested, but just like Grimkin, they always seemed too big brain for me.
They
I'm sure.
don't necessarily have to be, actually. Mostly they do small brain
Right.
things. They're just an extra question you have to ask yourself every turn, which is
Yeah,
not every turn, but you have to think about summoning on top of War Machine.
yeah. They're right up there with, I believe, Gravediggers for me, as far as like you have so many options that it could be an issue, like, with time.
Yeah, I think Gravediggers is
Thinking.
more, but because
Oh, you think so?
we have one extra option to turn. I have to summon one of 3 heavies, and I've brought 4 solos to summon off of. So I have to pick which one to kill this turn, usually.
Gotcha.
And then there's the second extra decision of how is my caster getting her essence this turn? Am I cutting? Am I killing a dude? But otherwise, we play fairly
Gotcha.
normal War Machine.
Okay.
Gravediggers has 4 different options they can airdrop every turn and have to make that decision turn 2, 3, 4. And what they do varies, so it's a much more complex decision tree, I think. At the same time, it is still extra decisions you have to make. And in Infernal, they don't really put that much extra stress on your opponent as far as what I'm bringing in. My opponent just gets to assume I have an extra heavy over here, and at some point that will be true, but I have to decide what it's going to be, et cetera, et cetera. So it's much more, I can make the wrong choice, and my opponent is probably set up fine either way.
Oh, okay.
We also just play a fairly large number of models in some of our lists, which doesn't help if clock pressure is a concern.
Yeah. Well, did you have anything else to add? Anything that I've possibly missed?
No, not really.
All right. And are you going to WTC this year?
I am. I'm on USA Team 3. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll definitely be rooting for you. Uh, and uh, and yeah, we wish you the best of luck in the future competitions.
Thank you very much. Definitely appreciate it.
It was great talking to you.
Likewise, buddy. Have a good day.